This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, my name is Paige Cargioli, and this is EPT Live. EPT stands for Emotional Polarity Technique, and it's a totally different approach in emotional healthcare. Instead of regular talk therapy or medication, EPT relies on the science of forgiveness so that people can get through whatever unresolved conflicts they have that are keeping them stuck so they can live with more passion and joy and everything, all that good stuff. I'm in Tampa. My business is Open Heart Holistic Therapy, and today we have Karen with us. Karen, welcome. Is it okay if we record this session and then post it on the internet?
Sure.
Great. Thank you, Karen. Yeah, Karen and I were just talking just for a minute. We just met here on the video, and she has a friend who's done EPT and really loves EPT, and she was open to trying it out today. So it's a little bit different working virtually versus working in person, but it's about 80% the same. The biggest difference is just, the energy in the room. And I would normally be doing muscle testing on your body, and I use magnets, and I would put these on you, but I assume you don't have magnets, so we'll just be using your hands. And while we go, my mom is doing like a play-by-play in the chat. So she'll have it all transcribed, or a lot of it transcribed for you if you want to go back and look, but also it's recorded, so you have that too. All right. So Karen, based on my little brief description and what little you know about EPT, is there something that you want to focus on today? Something you want to heal? It could be a relationship thing. It could be a physical pain or issue. It could just be a goal that you want to get to.
It's funny you ask. I'm in this weird place in my life right now. I don't know if it's COVID or if it's I feel like I was in it before COVID. Is just like this unmotivated, like I'll do what I have to kind of place, and not really sure where it's like stemming from. I'm just like trying to explain like feelings or emotion. I'm feeling kind of like, I don't know if numb is a good word to describe what I have going on, but just sort of like, okay.
Is there something that you like want to be doing that you're not doing?
Probably depends on who you ask.
Okay.
I would not think, my children or my husband would say that I'm not. But I do know that like there've just been stuff in our life as far as like job. I've had job stuff where it was questioning whether I was even going to have a job. And then there, my husband and his job and what that looked like. So it's just kind of like if I had to do something new, like I don't even know what that would be.
So what do you do now?
I am my official title is house manager. So I work for a family. I've been working for the same family for 18 years.
Oh, wow.
And so there's a lot of comfort in that. And recently have found out that I will be staying with them. We've kind of worked things out to where that will be where we will be staying. But my husband is a pastor, and his job could be could change, could not change. It's always the option that it could. So there's just a lot of stuff going on. But when it comes, you mentioned like forgiveness, and I don't know that there's something specific as much as I'm very much the type of person who will play back what I could have said, what I should have said, kind of hanging on to those sort of things, like should I have done that differently, and then just kind of beating myself up about how I said, and like years later, things that I said or did or whatever.
Well, and I'm also thinking, when you're feeling some maybe regret or some shame or confusion about something you did in the past, however it turned out, that would make it harder to feel motivated in the present to like do whatever you have to do because you're like, well, I don't want to do it if it's gonna like if I'm then gonna have to worry about it after I do
Absolutely.
it. So
Absolutely.
so all right, so
Do you know like the Enneagram stuff at all?
a little bit.
Okay, I was gonna say I'm a 9, which is the
Oh,
peacemaker.
yeah.
So if that tells you anything.
Okay. Yeah, so kind of like keeping things as peaceful as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, okay. Yeah, okay. All right. So, well, let's see what we can do to work on maybe getting you that motivation and letting go of, yeah, I guess whatever it is you're hanging on to. Um, um, So, but again, it sounds like it's also just more of it's like a sense within yourself, like when you're reflecting with yourself, it's kind of like how you feel, but other people would look around and be like, no, like, you're fine. You're where you're
I'm
supposed to
sure.
be. You're where you're supposed to be. Like, which is, it's nice when people tell you that, but it's hard sometimes to like have it in your heart and in your mind, so.
Exactly.
All right, so with EPT, we use magnets, but you don't have any magnets. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna breathe together.
Okay.
So you're gonna put your hands on your head like this,
Okay.
and you're going to squeeze on the inhale and then release on the exhale. So go ahead and breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And then this is a little strange. You got to put a finger right between your eyes like this, and then
Okay.
one right at the base of your skull. And
Okay.
it's the same kind of thing. You kind of like squeeze and pull and inhale and then exhale. So breathe in,
Okay.
breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. All right, you can take your hands down. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to muscle test you. If you were here, I would use your arm to muscle test. It's just looking for a strong or weak muscle response to answer some questions. So you'll kind of see me looking down. I'm looking at my forms that I have to fill out, and then I also have some forms over here. I might bring them and show you, but hold on a second. So let's see here. So think about just feeling a little unmotivated or kind of just like just like that, like
Where I'm at, so we're
yeah.
good.
Okay. Okay, so I'm just testing for like the distress level. Okay, so the distress was about a 9, so out of 10. So I looked to see like on a scale of 1 to 10 how distressing is it, and a 9, which seems pretty high. So maybe I don't know if that's higher than you would expect. But elation was a 0, so you're not addicted to being unmotivated. That's good. And then stage of healing was a 2. So in EPT, I look to see what stage of healing you're in with this specific issue. And stages of healing are just like stages of grief with a couple extra. Denial, anger, bargain, depression, acceptance, and then light emerging and creation of new life. So have them all here. And anger is just like, I hate this, why me? That's sort of the descriptor of anger.
Got it.
And in the session, I try to at least get you into acceptance and hopefully into light emerging and creation of new life. So the idea being that you don't just like go back and forth. You don't just go into acceptance. You actually want to get to a place where you're creating something new, where you're opening yourself up to new possibilities and then like taking action. And then in some ways you kind of start over. So you go through, you grow, you make something new, and then you kind of like get back. You can like cycle through the stages over and over again and in different places in your life. And it's just how you grow. So right now with this anger, I also check to see if there are any blocks to healing. And so the blocks to healing are show up, pay attention, tell the truth, and let go. And so if you are unable to show up, pay attention, tell the truth, or let go, then it's a lot harder to heal. So the issue that came up for you was showing up. And hold on a second. There's somebody. I'm trying to. Hold on a second. All right. Got somebody who's I think on the phone who isn't muted. All right. So so show up was weak. So that just helps me make statements once we get to that point in the session. And it might just be hard to. It's hard to show up for some reason. To do whatever, to have passion or to have something. I'm not sure. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. But again, I want it to be something that you're strong, where you feel like you can actually show up in your space, in the present, and feel some joy, feel some motivation, whatever it is that you need. Okay. So now let's see where we're going. All right. Like I said, I have my charts up there and I'm testing. So I muscle test on my hands. So, all right. Okay. So I don't know what's going on, but so it's I feel your mom's depression.
There's a lot of that.
Oh, really? Okay, so
I would say that. I don't know that she would say that.
Okay, so I feel my mom's depression. With your dad. So I was like trying to see if it had to do with somebody. So mom's depression with dad. Is there a reason, or what would you say? Like if your mom, like I feel mom's depression with dad because
he has cheated on her multiple times and they're still together.
Okay. All right.
So
well, I'm like testing, like, is it because I'm not good enough? No. So mom's depression with dad, because he doesn't change, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Like the cheating is like probably more of an anger feeling, but the depression is more like, can he like please just get over this already? Like.
Well, yeah, and I think, she would say he is, right? And I would say he's not actively in those situations. Yeah. I think like that's definitely, the feeling in that.
Well, yeah, so mom's, but there's still something like that he lets her down. Like,
yeah.
Even if he gets out of it, even if he begs forgiveness, even if he isn't actively, in a situation, it's still just like he's constantly letting her down.
Well, and she's waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah.
living in that constant state.
Yeah, okay. So mom's depression with dad, he doesn't change, and lets her down. All right, let me see if there's so I checked to see that's sort of like the now, but let's see what the original is. All right, so it's 13 years old. I don't know if something happened when you were 13. Do you have siblings?
I
And
do have
you're
seven siblings. I don't know when his first affair was.
okay.
I don't know how old I was when that happened.
Okay. Um, yeah, and it's still mom's depression. Does so you haven't like asked your mom when it was or that she knows of?
Um, I know, so 13, I would have been in grade school. I know I was in grade school.
Yeah, you'd be possibly like 8th grade.
Yeah, so I graduated 8th grade in 94, um, and turned 14 that year. So yeah, so I would have been, um, yeah, so I don't know how old I don't remember how old I was, but I know I was old enough to move my furniture around in my bedroom by myself.
Mm.
Because as demented as this sounds, when they were fighting, I moved my bed to the door.
Hmm.
When they were okay, I moved it against the wall that that I shared with them.
Huh.
So I could hear when they were arguing downstairs at the door, and then obviously during their makeup times, I shared a wall with them, so I knew what was happening.
So, well, yeah, I mean, you'd have to be
So I would have
fairly
had to have been big enough to be able to
to move your bed.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was before I had, and then eventually I got a water bed, so I wasn't able to move that.
Okay. No.
Um, so it could have been around there. I'll have to ask.
Yeah. But I assume they were fighting before this,
Um,
or they had fights, but it
yeah,
was
I mean, my
worse.
dad worked all the time,
Okay.
so there was always something, but I don't recall. The arguing I remember is around the affair.
Okay. 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 So you were
So,
aware of it, like when it
oh
was.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I was a school counselor, and I've had kids who are basically like in their teens or and they're just like, their parents are fighting, and they're like, we know why they're fighting. Like, like there's no hiding it. All right. So mom's depression with dad, but yeah, it could have been around that time or even before that time, but still um, it's like a stuck place for her, where it's just,
Mhm.
um, yeah. Um, it doesn't seem like she's the type of person who blames herself at all about this. I mean, at least not really. Some women are like, well, if only I could have done better or something, or if I would have known, but
No,
uh,
she won't ever take responsibility
oh no.
for anything.
For anything, yeah,
I
she's
love my
definitely.
mother.
We all do. We all, or to one degree or another. Okay, mom's depression with dad, because I mean, again, it just seems like there's a constant disappointment from her to him.
Hmm.
So, um, yeah, and he lets her down. It could, yeah, and it's obviously also he cheats, and that's the biggest letdown, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the biggest letdown. I'm like trying to think if there was another thing. Like, could there be another thing that really more than that lets her down? I don't think so. Okay. All right, so you're gonna put a hand on your liver, which is your right side,
Okay.
on like your rib cage area,
Okay.
and then you're gonna put a hand on your forehead. And so I feel mom's depression with dad when I'm 13 because he lets her down and he's a cheater. So breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, out, breathe in. Okay, you take your hands down. I also don't get the sense that your dad blames your mom either. Like, there's not a lot of blame that goes here. It's just a truth of their relational existence. Like,
Yeah. Which is, I think, why they're together.
that's, yeah.
Is and why they've been able to work it out, because it's more of, I'll say, like a mental health piece of my dad than it is something that my mom has done or
Yeah.
hasn't done. So
Yeah, and I'm guessing he's apologetic. Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah,
So even, yeah, even
yeah.
though, like, he doesn't, I don't know, he doesn't change, I guess is the word. So yeah, okay. Let's see what else there is. And then it's your grief. So lung, grief when you're 13. So my grief when I'm 13 with my dad. So it's grief with dad. Mine. Dad. Because do you remember feeling sad or grief about this, or
Um,
not quite? Were you mad?
I don't remember being mad
Okay.
at that point.
Yeah.
Maybe, I mean, so we were really good friends with the family, like
Oh.
the daughters, like, and me were like, and all of us. So like my younger brother was friends, like best friends with their youngest, and I was friends with their two girls. And so
Mhm.
like it split that friendship where we weren't, I mean, we
Oh.
had gone on vacations and just different things. So it ended those relationships almost obviously instantly, you know. I mean, it helped that then they moved, and then, you know what? It probably was 13, because then if I was going to high school, they did not go to the same high school as me. So it may have even been younger than that by
Mhm.
year,
Mhm.
um, to where then, because they did not go to the same high school as me. So,
And was it like, did you have a sense like our family is falling apart, or like, I don't know how conscious
um,
or was it just,
I don't know that I thought they weren't gonna make it. I don't know that I ever had that
yeah,
thought
yeah,
uh, of that. I do know that our family was also going to counseling,
yeah.
and things
Well,
like that around that time. So,
well, and I'm wondering if it's just like grief with um sort of
well, and
maybe grief with who you thought your dad was.
and he wasn't around, like he worked all the time. So I don't
Mhm.
know if it was grief in just the relationship
Yeah.
at
That's, yeah.
all, where, um, as a
It's,
teenage girl, and not, like, I guess if I'm going to psychoanalyze myself in it, where like wasn't having relationships with boyfriends, and, you know, and I wasn't promiscuous, I wasn't any of those things. Um, but I, like being made fun of for, like I did not have a chest, in
oh,
high, in junior high, like I did not develop like some of the other girls in my class. So I don't know if it was like wanting just like dad's approval
mhm,
and not being able, like, because he wasn't around. Like I said, I'm,
mhm.
guessing, of my 13-year-old self. So,
Yeah, I mean, when I test just like that a relationship is ending, it's almost like it feels almost like like an era. It's like a transitional moment in your family,
mhm,
kind of. And there's grief with something with the change, whatever. But also it could be it is also maybe the grief of yeah, well, and it's interesting that you bring up the other family too. So it's just like, things were, yeah, very, there was a lot happening.
mhm, absolutely.
Um, Yeah, and I'm trying to think like if it's something you thought like it was one way and then it suddenly changed and that's the grief. It's just this was what I thought we were and now we're this. Or, you know, who I thought I wanted to have a relationship with, or the dad that I wanted to have a relationship with is not the dad that I thought he was, or something like that. Um,
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
um,
not that I remember.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
and I don't think that you would, because you're just going with the flow.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So put a hand, yeah. So like it's almost like a loss, and it might just be feeling like a loss of a dad that you had hoped for or that you thought you knew, even though he wasn't even around.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now you had a better picture of him, and maybe you weren't even sure you wanted to know him now. Like, um, uh, all right, so put a hand on your lung, so right here or right here,
Okay.
and then a hand on your forehead. And yeah, I feel grief with dad. Um, uh, because of the relationships that are ending. So breathe in. Yeah. Breathe in. Yeah. Breathe in. Breathe out. All right, take your hands down. Let's see. Yeah, it's yeah, I think like you said, there was like if you're psychoanalyzing yourself, it's like I had this picture of how I wanted my dad to be, even though he wasn't that anyway. And now that I have a piece of truth about him that's not great for me or for our family, I just don't even know what to do with that. Which kind of fits in the unmotivated, not sure what, you know, kind of feeling a little numb, like this does not compute with what I had hoped for, you know. Um, because I think every kid like wants to have a good relationship with their family member, no matter how good or terrible they are.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're a kid and you come to sort of the truth about who that person is, it can be um, really uncomfortable to want to identify with them because I don't want to, I don't, you know, like it can be hard. So we'll work that out. Um, okay, all right. The next part we're gonna do forgiveness statements. So I have a little card that I use. Actually, I have a card that I use to figure out what the emotions are. Um, and then I have a card for doing forgiveness statements. So for our forgiveness statements, there's a couple ways you can position yourself while we say them.
Okay.
It's tapping the top of your head.
Okay.
So you might do one side if your arm gets tired, or the other side. And then like I said, if you're tired of doing that, you can hold these points right here below your collarbone. Those are fear release points. Just hold.
Okay.
And again, if you were here with me, I would tap the top of your head, but you're not here with me. So, and then for myself, I magnetize myself. I've got magnets on the floor, and then I also have a sound therapy machine to just kind of keep my energy up. Um, and again, if you were here, it would be on you,
So like,
not on.
like right here as I try to.
Yeah, right here. Yeah, it's right below your collarbone. Like,
Okay.
you feel your collarbone, it's just like right there. But again, tapping the top of your head. So So with this situation, there's like a P2 trauma, and I think that's so phase 1 trauma is fight or flight, and phase 2 trauma is freeze. And so I'm thinking if your mom and dad are fighting, you're having these, like you said, you're having these weird things where you're like moving your bed around, and you're trying to figure out how to like make your little 13-year-old self make this make sense, or make this better, or figure out how to kind of like deal with it. But for the most part, you kind of just shut down and are just going with the flow. Very Enneagram 9. Whatever happens, happens. I'm not going to be the one to like ruin a good thing, Mm-hmm. All right. So, but it's also interesting to think like you wanted to be closer or further from them, depending.
I know. It's not.
It's so interesting. It's an interesting thing that you just like remember. All right. So just repeat after me. I've got my little card here. I forgive myself for believing.
I forgive myself for believing.
I have to hold on to my mom's depression with my dad.
I have to hold on to my mom's depression with my dad
When I'm 13.
when I'm 13.
Because he lets her down and cheats.
Because he lets her down and cheats.
And breathe. I forgive myself for believing.
I forgive myself for believing.
This depression that my mom has with my dad
that my mom has with my dad
will always be this way in my life.
Will always be this way in my life.
Until he changes.
Until he changes.
Or my mom accepts him.
Or my mom accepts him.
And breathe. I forgive myself for believing.
I forgive myself for believing.
That the depression my mom had.
That the depression that my mom had.
Was my fault.
Was my fault.
Because I let her down somehow.
Because I let her down somehow.
And breathe. I forgive myself for believing.
I forgive myself for believing.
My mom has to change.
My mom has to change.
And accept my dad.
And accept my dad.
And accept me.
And accept me.
Before I can let this go.
Before I can let this go.
And breathe. I forgive my dad.
I forgive my dad.
For not showing up for my mom.
For not showing up for my mom.
The way she wanted.
The way she wanted.
And breathe. I forgive myself for believing.
I forgive myself for believing.
I forgive my 13-year-old self for believing.
I forgive my 13-year-old self for believing.
Every time she lets her mom down.
Every time she lets her mom down.
Gonna remind her of her dad.
I'm gonna remind her of her dad.
Or of your dad.
Of my dad.
Yeah. I forgive my 13-year-old self.
I forgive my 13-year-old self.
For believing.
For believing.
She can't fully show up and be herself.
She can't fully show up and be herself.
Both part her mom and part her dad.
Both part my mom and my dad.
Without being a letdown.
Without being a letdown.
Number. I forgive my mom.
I forgive my mom.
For holding on to depression.
For holding on to depression.
with my dad when he lets her down.
with my dad when he lets her down.
Breathe. I forgive my mom
I forgive my mom
for believing
for believing
she's always going to be let down by someone.
she's always going to be let down by someone.
Yeah, and breathe. I forgive myself for believing
I forgive myself for believing
I have to hold on to grief
that I have to hold on to grief
with the loss of a dad
with the loss of a dad
I thought I had.
I thought I had.
And breathe. I forgive my mom
I forgive my mom
for holding on, uh, for feeling depressed,
for feeling depressed
and holding on to an expectation of my dad
and holding on to an expectation of my dad
that he can never undo.
that he can never undo.
And breathe. I forgive myself for believing
I forgive myself for believing
I have to hold on to grief with my dad
that I have to hold on to grief for my dad
because what he did, he can't undo.
because what he did, he can't undo.
And breathe. I forgive my mom
I forgive my mom
for believing
for believing
she can't change
she can't change
until my dad changes.
until my dad changes.
And breathe. I forgive my 13-year-old self
I forgive my 13-year-old self
for holding, or I forgive my 13-year-old self for believing
for believing
she could show up
she could show up
and make the peace
and make the peace
so that mom wouldn't be depressed.
so that mom wouldn't be depressed.
And breathe. I forgive my mom for believing
I forgive my mom for believing
she has to stay depressed
she has to stay depressed
since my dad did something
since my dad did something
that can't be undone.
that can't be undone.
And breathe. I forgive my mom for believing
I forgive my mom for believing
she can't feel
she can't feel
love, forgiveness, and happiness
love, forgiveness, and happiness
since my dad cheated.
since my dad cheated.
Yeah, and breathe. I forgive my 13-year-old self for believing
I forgive my 13-year-old self for believing
she can't feel joy or relaxed
she can't feel joy or relaxed
as long as her mom is let down.
as long as her mom is let down.
Yeah, and breathe. I forgive my 13-year-old self for believing
I forgive my 13-year-old self for believing
she has to do something
she has to do something
to get her dad back the way it was.
to get her dad back the way it was.
And breathe. I forgive my 13-year-old self.
I
Or
forgive
how about I give my 13-year-old self permission
I give my 13-year-old self permission
to feel joy and relaxed
to feel joy and relaxed
um, uh, letting go of the expectation she had from her dad.
Letting go of the expectation she had from her dad.
Before and after he cheated.
Before and after he cheated.
I give my 13-year-old self permission to accept.
I give my 13-year-old self permission to accept.
She can let go, or she can feel joy and relaxed.
She can feel joy and relaxed.
Letting go of any expectation from her dad.
Letting go of any expectation from my dad.
Even if mom doesn't.
Even if mom doesn't.
Yeah, Amber. I give my 13-year-old self permission.
I give my 13-year-old self permission.
To feel joy and relaxed.
To feel joy and relaxed.
Showing up for my dad, or showing up with my dad.
Showing up with my dad.
Without expectation.
Without expectation.
Even if my mom is let down.
Even if my mom is let down.
And her expectations.
And her expectations.
Yeah, breathe. I forgive my dad.
I forgive my dad.
For not being what I expected.
For not being what I expected.
And bringing up this grief.
And bringing up this grief.
Yeah, breathe. I give myself permission.
I give myself permission.
To let go of my mom's depression with my dad.
To let go of my mom's depression with my dad.
Even if he lets her down again.
Even if he lets her down again.
I give myself permission.
I give myself permission.
To let go of my mom's expectations of my dad.
To let go of my mom's expectations of my dad.
So I can feel joy.
So I can
feel joy and forgiveness and love.
So I can feel joy, love, and forgiveness.
I forgive myself for believing.
I forgive myself for believing.
If I'm motivated and do more of what I want to do.
If I'm motivated and want to do more of what I want to do.
I'll let someone down some way.
I'll let someone down some way.
I give myself permission.
I give myself permission.
To feel joy and relaxed.
To feel joy and relaxed.
Love, forgiveness, and happiness.
Love, forgiveness, and happiness.
Showing up with gratitude.
Showing up with gratitude.
Honoring the parts of myself.
Honoring the parts of myself.
That are like my mom and my dad.
That are like my mom and my dad.
And breathe. I give myself permission.
I give myself permission.
To let go.
To let go.
Of the loyalty I have to mom's depression.
Of the loyalty I have to mom's depression.
Every time dad lets her down.
Every time dad lets her down.
And breathe. I give my mom permission to forgive me.
I give my mom permission to forgive me.
For blaming her.
For blaming her.
For the depression I feel.
For the depression I feel.
When I can't fully be myself.
When I can't fully be myself.
Because I'm afraid I'll let someone down.
Because I'm afraid I'll let someone down.
And breathe. Or wish I did it differently. Yeah. I give my dad permission to forgive me.
I give my dad permission to forgive me.
For blaming him.
For blaming him.
when I have grief,
when I have grief,
um, because my expectations in the relationship weren't met.
because my expectations of the relationship weren't met.
Remember. I forgive myself for believing
I forgive myself for believing
my dad's always going to be a letdown.
my dad's always going to be a letdown.
Remember. I give my dad permission to forgive me
I give my dad permission to forgive me
when I let him down.
when I let him down.
Remember. I give my mom permission to forgive me
I give my mom permission to forgive me
when I let her down.
when I let her down.
Yeah, breathe. I love and accept myself,
I love and accept myself
even when I'm afraid.
even when I'm afraid.
Um, I'll be a letdown,
I'll be a letdown,
or somebody else will be a letdown.
or someone else will be a letdown.
Yeah, breathe. I love and accept myself,
I love and accept myself
even when I'm afraid.
even when I'm afraid.
I'll show up fully in the relationship.
I'll show up fully in the relationship,
And there'll still be a letdown.
and there'll still be a letdown.
Breathe. I give myself permission to accept.
I give myself permission to accept
Um, uh, Showing up fully
showing up fully
and and using the gifts God has given me
and using the gifts God has given me.
Will never be a letdown.
Will never be a letdown.
Yeah, great. Without this depression, I am free.
Without this depression, I am free.
Or without my mom's depression, I am free.
Without my mom's depression, I am free.
To feel joy and relaxed.
To feel joy and relaxed.
Love and forgiveness.
Love and forgiveness.
I want to say letting God use me.
Letting God use me.
Let's see. I'm like letting God use me to be a better person for the people I love.
Letting God use me to be a better person for the people I love.
And to connect.
And to connect.
Even if my expectations aren't met.
Even if my expectations aren't met.
I'm still worthy.
I'm still worthy.
And breathe. Without this depression, I am free.
Without this depression, I am free.
To be open to change.
To be open to change.
And new possibilities.
And new possibilities.
Yeah, breathe. Without this pattern, I am free.
Without this pattern, I am free.
To let go. Without this pattern, I'm free to let go of my mom's depression.
To let go of my mom's depression.
And my dad not changing
and my dad not changing,
so that I can grow
so that I can grow
and love them more
and love them more
and love my family more
and love my family more
and and connect more in with joy
and connect more with joy
and the love God has for me.
and the love God has for me.
That will never be a letdown.
I will never be a letdown.
Breathe. Okay, you can stop tapping. Let's see so that's how it goes. Let's see. So what I do next is just check and see where we're at. So think about, I mean, I don't know how you're feeling. How are you feeling about the whole unmotivated, just doing what I have to do?
I mean, I mean, right now I feel really good. I don't know if it was what I was doing in my head or what.
You're like, wow, it feels nice. So just checking with the distress level went down from a 9 to a 4. So, I mean, again, it might just feel like there doesn't have to be some like big epic change. It's just maybe it's just the difficulty sometimes of connecting to the joy because there's always going to be a letdown. But that's all your mom stuff. So it's like letting go of that. And maybe it's just some of that you're kind of feeling or holding on to.
Mm-hmm.
So and this will be good because if you decide to make the change or make some sort of change, you'll still be able to connect to joy instead of if I make this change, I'm going to regret it, you know?
Yeah.
So or something bad's going to happen. So which is good, which is we want to like release that sort of weird stuckness that your parents are in so that you can feel joy whatever the circumstances. So yes, elation is still 0. Stage of healing went from anger to acceptance. That's good. It says basically for acceptance says, you know, I will take action in my life because I love my life, not because I'm just trying to avoid a bad situation. Bargain is when you're making choices because you hate your life, not because you love your life. So acceptance is a good place to be because what it means is I can do this and do it because I love it, not because I just have to do it, you know.
Certainly.
All right, and things are pretty strong. So that's how EPT goes. I don't know if there's anything else. You did you just say I love it?
I love it.
I mean, it's amazing stuff. I love this technique. I love how it works. I don't know.
There are people in this area too.
Oh yeah, there's a lot.
I'm sure I think my sister-in-law sees somebody, so I'll just have to ask her.
Yeah, see who anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording. We can chat a little bit.
Okay.
But thank you so much, Karen.
No, thank you.
Yeah.